Okay, welcome everybody to this meeting of the Leicestershire Safer Community Strategy Board, the 17th of June 2022. This meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube, so just to remind you of that. And as this is the first meeting of the council year, the first agenda item is appointment of chairman. Do we have any nominations for chairman? Mr. Phillimore?
I would be delighted to propose Mrs. Deborah Taylor to be chairman. Thank you.
Does anyone want to second that?
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. And any other nominations? Okay, everybody in favour of Deborah Taylor being appointed chair? Thank you very much. Okay, Mrs. Taylor, I'll hand over to you for the rest of the meeting.
Lovely, thank you, and thank you everyone for your support in continuing to chair this really important meeting for everyone. Okay, so we'll move on to item 2, which is the appointment of the deputy chairman. Do we have any nominations for deputy chairman? Les?
Oh, sorry, needed to stand right. No, just hold me, forget me for a moment. Deb, go to somebody else for a second.
Okay. Anyone else got any nominations for vice chairman? Okay, well, I'll nominate Neil Bannister if he's happy to be vice chair of this.
Very happy to second that one, Chair.
Okay, so any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, we all are happy for Neil Bannister to be vice chair of the panel. Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, introductions. I think most of us know each other, but obviously if you're new here and you speak, maybe just introduce yourself. But I think because of the amount of people on here, it will take us half the meeting to introduce each other. So we'll continue as we are. So I'll just introduce myself. So Councillor Deb Taylor, lead member for Children and Families and Deputy Leader at the Leicestershire County Council and chair of this meeting. Lee.
Yeah, I thought I'd introduce myself. It's my first meeting of this group. So I'm Lee Mansfield. I'm the Community Safety Team Manager at North West Leicestershire.
Welcome, Lee. Thank you for joining us. Okay, on to item 4, which is the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 3 to 12. I did just notice a typo on page 10, Ewan. I think the word prevent's got an E missing from it, if you just want to do that typo. Is there anything else anyone wants to on the minutes? Any other comments, corrections? No, are we all happy to accept those as a true record of that meeting?
Agreed.
Okay, lovely, thank you. We'll move on to matters arising. I don't have anything arising for the minutes. Anything from anyone else? No, okay. On to item 6 was the LSCSB action log, pages 13 to 14. I didn't pick anything up that need any action or chasing. I think most of the things on here are either in hand or on the agenda today. Is there anything else that anyone wants to pick up from the action log? No, okay, that's fine, thank you. Okay, on to item 7, declarations of interest. So any declarations of interest from anyone on the agenda today?
Yes.
Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, it's my usual declaration. I think it's a registrable interest. I'm employed by the Crown Prosecution Service, but I am not here in any capacity from the CPS. I'm here as an LCC stroke Fire Authority member, and any views that I do express are my own and not in any way connected to the Crown Prosecution Service.
Lovely, thanks, Neil. Anything from anyone else to declare? Okay. On to item 8, which is HMP Fossway update. Sorry, I've not seen if Nick or Reg are on the meeting today.
No, I can't see them either.
No.
It may be best to move on to the next item.
I think they have. Okay, we'll move on. They might pop in. If not, I think you've just emailed a update, haven't you? The newsletter I'll just see really quickly in my email. So
that's right. I've just circulated.
Yeah, that should have gone out to everyone. So you have got that information on that newsletter. Okay, we'll move on to item 9, which is the Domestic Abuse Perpetrators Programme. So Suki, I can see you on screen. So pages 15 to 18. So over to you, Suki.
Thank you. I have got a presentation. My colleague Holly Wild was going to be presenting, but I can see she's not joined quite yet. Because I think she thought this item was going to be at 10:15. So I'm happy to make a start. Here she is, as we speak. So if we can just invite her in, and she'll be happy to present the presentation. Holly, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are on next. If you're happy to share the presentation.
Yeah, lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Stucky, did you say you're sharing it or for me to share it?
So I was going to suggest if you can share it, because then you'll be navigating through it, won't you?
Yeah, that's fine. Can everyone see this?
Yeah, it's on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I'll just quickly introduce myself. Sorry, so I'm Holly. I'm the service manager for the Jenkins Centre in Leicestershire and Rutland at the moment. So I'm just going to go through, give you a bit of information about our service in general, and then give you a bit of an idea of some of our outputs and outcomes as well in terms of the service that we had from 2021 and into 2022. So as a bit of background, Freeva is a registered charity working towards reducing domestic abuse, rape and sexual assault. And in terms of the Jenkins Centre, we work specifically with people that have used abuse within their relationships, trying to help them make changes in order to stop using that abuse within relationships and have respectful relationships. So we work as part of a coordinated community response model that brings services together to ensure that we keep survivors safe, help perpetrators to actually take account of their behaviour and to prevent that domestic abuse happening in the future. We're looking to support people in long-term change. And so part of that is supporting the perpetrators in making that change, but also we offer an integrated service for our partners and ex-partners in order to support them for emotional support following the abuse that they might have faced in their relationships. So the Jenkins Centre have been delivering perpetrator programmes in Leicester City since 2012. And we've also got a number of other projects that we're involved in as well. So at the moment, we provide programmes in Lincolnshire as part of the Make a Change model, which is developed by Respect and Women's Aid. We're also working with a project in Nottinghamshire, which is alongside Equation, which again is providing programmes for perpetrators, and we're trying to embed that into that area at the moment. Following the success of our Home Office funding in 2020, we've expanded our services across Leicestershire and Rutland, and we've got that funding secured until September 2022 at the moment. Our programmes are Respect accredited, providing assurance that our services meet a high quality of standard. And within the Jenkins Centre, we've also got a young persons project, which works with individuals aged 10 to 18 who might be using abusive behaviour either towards their parents or caregivers, or in intimate relationships, dating relationships that they might be in at that time. So a little bit about the actual interventions that we run at the Jenkins Centre. So the main programme, I suppose, that we offer is called The Second Step. It's a 24-week intervention, so it's obviously quite a big commitment for people to get involved in. It's broken down into 2 modules, so 12 weeks each, coming to the sessions once a week. And it's broken down, I suppose, first of all, the module that initially starts is focused more around safety. So it's really starting to look at people's triggers, their warning signs, so that they can possibly get out of a situation before it escalates, or to know the kind of strategies that they can use to diffuse that more quickly. And then the second half of the programme focuses a lot more on respectful relationships. So starting to build up different strategies that can be used to actually have healthy communication, to work well with their partner in terms of being a team, rather than there being the abuse that has been present previously. We also offer one-to-one intervention. So that generally is for clients who perhaps wouldn't be able to join the main group for any reason. So it could be if an interpreter is required, or there are certain needs that they would have that they might need a bit of extra support. So whether that be certain learning needs, or mental health issues, or physical health issues as well, we can give a bit more flexibility and a bit more support when offering the one-to-one intervention. The Step Up Dads programme is a 10-week fathering programme for men that have completed the second step, so the main programme. And it really offers an opportunity for them to start to look at how to develop relationships with their children following the domestic abuse that's happened in the relationship so far. So it not only looks at positive parenting in general, but also specifically in terms of how to actually rebuild those relationships and to try and work through any issues that have been there before. We're really pleased at the moment to be running our second women's programme. So we ran a pilot of this a while ago, and we've kind of reviewed it and are now on the second programme of it. So we're working with women that have used abuse within their relationships, and it follows a lot of the same things that the male programmes look at, but with a focus of actually understanding why a female may use abuse within their relationship. There's a lot of different dynamics that might be behind that. So it's really important to build that understanding, as well as helping them to obviously learn new behaviours and start to be able to make those changes. So in terms of eligibility, we unfortunately can't work with clients that are currently in proceedings. So whether that is criminal proceedings due to domestic abuse, or whether that's private or public law proceedings related to child custody. The main point of that is that we don't want to be, I suppose, drawn into that and things to be misinterpreted in any way, in order for us to keep victims and children safe. So we also ask that people haven't been engaged in a service similar to ours within the last 6 months, really just to ensure that if there had been issues previously, that they've had time to kind of work through those before they come to us, or just in terms of the idea of learning, if they've already been on it, probably needs a bit more time for them to be able to refresh and come on to our programme. Suitability is massively important to us. We have a really in-depth assessment process that we get clients to go through before being found suitable or unsuitable for our programmes. We need our clients to show some kind of accountability for their actions. So we do ask that they admit to at least some of the abuse that they've used in their relationships, and that they can take accountability and responsibility for that. And also we need levels of motivation to change, which is an internal form of motivation. So if they're purely wanting to do it to be able to see their family, or, you know, to tick a box for social services, anything like that, then that would not be enough for us to feel that it would be appropriate to work with them. We need them to have the inner motivation to do it. What we are offering now, which is still fairly new and in a continual kind of review process at the moment, is foundations. So for clients that have been found unsuitable for the main programme, we now offer foundations as a kind of stepping stone, hopefully, to be able to move on to the main programme. So it's a 6-week awareness building course. So it's not an intervention, it's not about behaviour change, but it's just to offer the opportunity to build awareness and understanding of what domestic abuse is and the differences between healthy and unhealthy relationships, with the hope of that being that perhaps once they've built that level of understanding, then they would actually be able to take more accountability for their own actions and have more motivation to change. We also offer our partner support service, as I said before. So for any clients that have come onto the perpetrator strand, their partners and ex-partners are offered the chance to come into our partner support service. So this offers a chance for us to hopefully keep victims and children safe, whilst also empowering them and giving them confidence, showing them different options that they might have within the situation that they're in. We feel it's really important to have the partner support side working alongside the intervention side, as it gives us a really clear view in terms of risk and any issues that might actually be happening in the relationship at that point. So in terms of the partner support service specifically, we look at monitoring levels of risk within the relationship, offering safety planning, but also a lot of emotional support. So it's all very tailored to the individual. It's completely voluntary as to what they want to be involved in, how much support they want, the types of support that they might be interested in. And we also offer signposting and referrals to any other professional support that they might require at that time. For the partner support service, it's also really important for us that they're offered plenty of time within the support. So they're provided with up to an extra 6 months following the perpetrator's either completion or drop out from the programme. So we realise that obviously, you know, changes can happen over a long amount of time, and if someone has been on a programme and then comes off, that could lead to more changes, and therefore we're there for that continued support for them during that time. Are there any questions about any of that before I move on to the kind of outputs and outcomes?
No one's indicating, Holly, so if you want to carry on.
Okay, so between 21 and 22, this is what our referrals were looking like into the service. So on here we've got all of the referrals that were received, the eligible referrals. So that is in terms of ensuring that they're not in proceedings, and then the self-motivated referrals. So as you can see, last year we got 86 eligible referrals from the county and 103 from city. And of the ones from county, 33% of those were self-referrals. So that's actually quite encouraging. It's a slightly higher level than the city numbers are in terms of the self-referrals. And that's something that we're going to continue working on moving forward in terms of media campaigns, making links to different faith groups in different kind of small communities, and trying to build links that way to continue to develop our numbers of self-referrals. In terms of people that have actually completed the programmes, we've got all of the numbers up here, so I won't go through all of them, but overall it works out that for county we had an 88% completion rate, which is also equivalent to the completion rate that we were getting for city. So I suppose in terms of completions for these programmes, there are always barriers to that. A lot of the people that we work with have a number of issues within their life, and this is just one of them. So sometimes other things kind of pull them out and they disengage. For other people, they find that it just isn't for them. And then also, obviously, I suppose recently we've had all of the issues around COVID and the other life stresses that have come from that, which have also had an impact on people's engagement. But 88% is positive, and it's kind of fitting for other programmes as well. Currently on intervention, we've got 13 from county. So that's on the second step, the women's programme, and one-to-one intervention. So on this slide, we're just looking at the kind of ongoing abusive behaviours that have happened in relationships when people have been on the programme or they've been open to our service. So as you can see, there are still some incidents that have happened, but from county, 41 out of 47 perpetrators had been seen to reduce their use of abusive behaviour. So that pretty much means that there hadn't been any recorded incidents during their time with us, which is obviously, you know, a positive marker that shows that the programme is being effective for people. This is from our partner support service. So at the moment, or I suppose last year, from county, 80% of our partners and ex-partners fully engaged in the partner support service. So as I said, it's a completely voluntary thing for them as to whether they engage or not. So 80% is a positive. I think especially for county, because some of the self-referrals were of a high level, that can sometimes mean that the partner might be less kind of motivated to engage in the partner support service, because there might be a certain view of the level of abuse that has been used at certain times. We find that sometimes with the self-referrals, it can be the lower level of abuse, which obviously it's important for us to work with so that it doesn't escalate. But sometimes with that, the partners don't feel that they need support at that time. In terms of partners and ex-partners feeling safer, 100% of the ones that gave us feedback said that they did feel safer once their partner had been on intervention. So in terms of what this means, the numbers of referrals received from the county have been increasing throughout the year, and we're continuing to see that moving into this year as well. We receive a slightly higher ratio of self-referrals from county, as I said. 87% of perpetrators from county have been seen to reduce the use of abusive behaviour, so that's really positive. And as I said, 100% of the partners that gave feedback did say that they felt safer. So here we've just got some feedback from some of our service users. So some of the perpetrators that have been on our interventions and from some of the survivors. So as you can see, we've got some really positive points about things that people are learning, about feeling more comfortable in themselves, and about being able to work through things with their partners as well. Okay. And that's it in terms of the presentation. Any questions at all?
Yeah, I've got a few for you, Holly. Lee, you were first. Lee Mansfield, that is.
Thank you, Chair. Great programme and some great stats there. So well done, congratulations. My question's around the stats for well, specifically Northwest Leicestershire. So we had 12 referrals into the programme. Only one of those 12 were considered to be self-motivated, which obviously eligible for the main programme. Would the other 11 be suitable for the 6-week awareness course?
So in terms of the self-motivated, they're just the ones where it's the client themselves that have referred themselves for the programme. So all of the other ones would be classed as not self-motivated just because it's come through other services. But yeah, anybody who is found not suitable for the programme, if it's in terms of accountability and motivation, then yeah, we would look at offering the Foundations programme as an alternative. Obviously, it's completely up to them whether they want to get involved in that or not, but it would generally be offered. And also, if somebody is not eligible, foundations can also sometimes be offered to them if they're in proceedings. We have got permission from Respect to be able to offer foundations as something as kind of interim while someone is in proceedings as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, you were next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As it's already been alluded to, I think it's a great slides, and what you're doing is fantastic. Being a victim of abuse growing up, I think it's vital that we have a robust system in place to do that. And I think what I've just heard so far, that you're doing a great job. Two things, if I may. Firstly, I haven't got a copy of the slides in the pack that's been sent. Is that relevant to everybody? If it isn't, could I have a copy of those slides, please?
Of course, yeah, that's no problem.
Sorry, okay. Secondly, how does it, I noticed it on the presentation by Suki, it's Freeva. How does that link in with our previous meeting, which is the Domestic Abuse Partnership, year one spend, where Freeva are on there 3 times, but it doesn't mention Jenkins Centre in that. Is that totally separate? Is that separate funding? Where does the funding come from?
Yeah, I could answer that.
The longevity of this project, I think it's vital that it continues. Thank you.
So yeah, so Freeva is the overall charity that Jenkins Centre is part of. Freeva as one of our services. So the funding for the perpetrator service is currently funded through the Home Office, and there's some also district funding within that and OPCC. At the moment, that is up until September. There is a bid gone into the Home Office, but we've not yet had any further update as to whether that's been successful or not. So obviously, you know, we do want the service to continue. So we are hoping that there is a continuation of that. So the funding that we spoke about earlier, that is separate to this funding. And that is funded as part of the DA Act funding.
Okay,
great, thank you. We keep us up to date with that, Chairman.
Yeah, definitely. So I've just written that down actually, so I'll come back to that in a minute. Les.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I don't think it was mentioned. Do we have any stats on repeat offender, and if so, how well are we managing them if there's a kind of 6-month window where they can't re-engage without going through the foundation bit? And I suppose then the other question is repeat victim. What do we have those stats? Do we know, you know, we've got a circular issue with some individuals that just keep coming onto your radar?
I suppose just to clarify, when you say offender, are you looking at people that have been convicted, or do you mean have used abusive behaviour again?
Are on your radar as being an abuser in a domestic environment, whether convicted or not? Okay.
Yeah. So when people come onto the programme, to be fair, it kind of depends where the referral is coming from as to how much information we have about any prior abuse that's been used or offences that has been used. When they're on our programme, we make sure that we are obviously kind of working with them and their partner to get as much feedback as possible and to know about any issues that are ongoing at that time, as well as liaising with any other professionals that are involved with those clients at that point. So we do have information. I suppose the slide that I showed in terms of the repeat incidents and feeling safer are our kind of demonstration of that. We generally, I suppose, kind of keep information in terms of when the client is completed, and some checks are done with partner support in terms of 6 months after that as well, to see if we've got a sustained kind of improvement following the programme. So we do try and keep track of it, but obviously sometimes it's dependent on how much information we can get from other sources as well.
So on that, just digging a little bit deeper, if I may, Chair, I would flag a slight concern that there may be a repeat person, but you might not know they're a repeat person, depending on which route they've come into. That would be of concern. We are meant to have joint agency communication. and I forgot what the second bit was, which was, don't worry about it. I'm just slightly concerned that there could be a repeat person. Oh, I know what it was, a repeat person in that system that we don't know is a repeat abuser. So that would be interesting for me to understand how they slip through the net. And I guess the second question, and it's something we as counsellors do have as a sort of embedded discipline, because of GDPR, we only keep personal details for a period of time, as in whilst we're dealing with that casework. Once the casework's finished, technically we remove that contact trace. How long are you guys able to keep perpetrator information under the GDPR system? Just curious.
I can answer that.
You might be.
Yeah, I can answer. Yeah, we do keep our data for effectively. We have that data to be made in our system for a while, purely down to if there is a domestic homicide review, we have got access to that information. So clients are informed that their data is kept indefinitely on our case management system. So the other question earlier, you also asked about the repeats. I guess there is a flagging system we do have in place around our repeats, because we do have a case management system. Obviously, we were delivering as part of consortium previously. So if anyone does come back into our system again, we have got access to that information as to whether they previously accessed services, and that being a perpetrator or a victim, and then we can flag that on our system.
Brilliant, thank you.
Two more questions and then we'll move on. So Lee Harper-Davis and then Sarah Pickering. So Lee first.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a really super programme, and I was looking forward to seeing the slide where Charnwood, you reach out to people in Charnwood as well. I just thank you for that. I just wondered, is there a waiting list to go on to these programmes with the increase in domestic violence, particularly over the COVID pandemic period?
So with our main intervention, the second step, it's a rolling programme and we have an intake every 6 weeks. So due to that, it actually keeps our waiting list fairly low, because there is that regular intake and that can move through, fairly quickly. I would say that the cases where people may have to wait a little longer is if they need either the women's group or they need one-to-one intervention. That's purely because we need to wait until we've got a member of staff who can take on that client. So it's obviously we need one to finish before we can put somebody else on. And for the women's group, it's about us being able to have a cohort big enough to form a group. But yeah, generally people get on really quickly, I would say, at the moment.
Thanks, Holly. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and last one, Sarah.
Good morning. Yes, I'm the Community Safety Manager at Harbour Council. Sort of two parts, really, a little bit like Lee asked. I was wondering, looking at our figures, we had 9 referrals, 8 which were eligible and only 2 that completed. Just wonder what happened to the other 6. Are they waiting still to have interventions, or did they not complete? That was the first part. And I was also asked on behalf of the districts to ask if districts could have quarterly updates on our figures, because I don't think we're now having meetings with the PCC how we did. So it would be good if we could have quarterly figures. Thank you.
In terms of the first part of that, I haven't got it to hand at the moment, but it could be either in terms of obviously that the figures that I've given are just those for the year. So if it is that they've been assessed and they're suitable, it could be that they're on currently. Or that it could be that they were found unsuitable. I think at the moment we have got somebody, at least one person that's on group who's from Harbour, as far as I can remember, just off the top of my head. But yeah, it could have fallen either way. But if you want those figures specifically, I can get those to you. And in terms of the quarterly, we gather those numbers anyway for all the districts, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Holly and Suki. I think by all the questions, you're aware that this is something we've been waiting for a while, actually, to see the work you do and also the funding that we've put in, what the impact of that. So it's really good to get some of that data. So if you could send the slides to you and he can send them around to the whole group, that would be fine. from memory, because I'm not a CSP chair anymore now, did we get the funding from the Home Office and then it was match funded from the CSPs? Is that how we funded this programme till September? Is that right?
Yeah, it was, yeah, matched funded through the CPS as well
CSPs,
as
right.
the OPCC put some funding.
So the bid that you've put in, that you've mentioned to the Home Office, is that going to need match funding again to continue the programme?
I think it is, but I think it's done in a way that the OPC have done some internal, I think, work around how that would be allocated, and I think there have been some discussions with districts around that.
Okay, is anyone from the district aware of any discussions about continuing this after September? Has anyone had that come across them? No. Okay. It's probably something we need to pick up then, because I think we can all see the impact from the figures that you've just shown us today, that we've just seen really quickly. We probably need to study them a bit more, don't we? But that it is having an impact, and the funding that CSP's put in is worth the money and what we've got out of it. So I think I'd be keen to continue the programme, and I'm sure many of the CSP's chairs here today and public health, etc. So I think we need to find a way of funding this. Obviously, we need to hear back from the Home Office first, because we're not going to be able to fund all of it. But I think as a collective group here today, I think we're all of the same mind that we need to continue this programme, but we need to obviously get the funding. So do you know when the bid is due back from the Home Office?
I chased up this week with the OPCC as to whether they've heard anything back. I've not heard back from them yet, so I will again contact them to find out. So obviously we're getting a little bit concerned that we're getting nearer to September. We need to think about exit, hopefully not. So just to get a timescale from them.
What I'll do, we'll put this on the action log, so I'll take it back today. I'll go back to the OPCC and obviously see where we are, because obviously the CSPs, if they do need to put any funding in, they need to take that through their own structures to get that agreement if they want to continue it, don't we? So we need to move fairly fast. We're not far from September, are we? So what I'll do, I'll put an action on the action log if Ian can do that for me. But there's no one from the OPCC on today, is there? We've got public health, so I don't know if there's any, because I know, is Joshna still on here? I don't know if that's, yeah, she is. Josh, I don't know if that's something you can take back to public health, whether any funding could come from that route as well, because obviously that's going to impact on your work that you do, isn't it? And
we're already in touch, aren't we, Suki? Are you in touch with Deborah? Because I know we're looking at a pot of funding as well to look at some early intervention support. So it's not going to cover the entirety of this, but I know we're looking to contribute some funding. I know we were just wanting you to get some of the bits. I know there was capacity issues, so
I submitted a proposal yesterday.
Wonderful.
Okay, brilliant. So it's probably something I'll pick up outside of the meeting then, Josh, and we need to make sure that this is we move this forward as quickly as possible. So I'll pick this up outside the meeting, and obviously our next meeting is not till September, is it, anyway? But obviously districts, if you want to start having those early discussions, if it's likely that you're going to want to put into the pot, because I think we all need to agree to do it, don't we, for it to move forward. We can't just have one or two districts. It's going to have to be all of us or none of us, isn't it? So okay, we'll put that on the action log and we'll pick up outside of the meeting with the OPCC where we are. But I think we need to carry on, because there's no point doing all this funding and stuff for victims if we're not actually getting to the root cause. And I've always said that. And I know the police are looking at a perpetrators programme as well, aren't they? But I don't know where that's sitting at the moment either, with funding for the actual police force for that. So I think there is work going on, and there's probably funding out there. It's just whether we can get all that funding in one place to fund one programme in the county in Rutland. So, okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on. I have seen that Raj is here, so I don't know if she wants to move just back to item 8 for
just quickly, are you happy for us to leave the meeting now?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thanks very much.
Great. Thank you all.
Raj, do you want to go back to your HMP Foss Way to give a quick update on that? I think we have had your newsletter come through. So if you want to just give us a quick update on HMP Foss Way.
I will, thank you, Chair. I'm going to try and do something that I've not done before with this particular meeting. So all things being equal, can you let me know if you can see my screen?
Yep, I can.
Okay, so this is the latest drone footage from May, the end of May. Can everybody see this?
Yeah, it's working.
Perfect. Okay, so just going to take you through, so it's the best way of doing it to give you a visual. Going to give you some updates as we go along, just to sort of like, again, save time. This is a bit like a roller coaster ride, so you just need to sit tight, sit well in your seats, because as the drone now will take us through the one of the house blocks. This is one of the ones, this is house block E. This is towards the end of its fit out, really, and as you can see, good advertising for ASA in there. You've got the servery on the left hand side, bearing in mind each house block is exactly the same on each of the floors, and then it's got 60 cells on each floor, 20 per spur. So we've just come to the end of the spur. As we come out and come around, you'll see the amount of plant that's actually on the roofs. I mean, obviously, there is just absolutely no space. It is jam-packed. But as you can see, I think we'd all be in the same place when we sort of said that the build is fairly well progressed. We've currently got about 9 months left in the programme. So everyone is working at pace at the moment. The 13 buildings currently, and all 13 buildings are currently being fitted out at various stages, of course, but all being fitted out. And here we go back in through. This is one of the last house blocks to be fitted out, and as you can see, it's a long way from the first one you've just seen. But of course, it is about sequencing these things, and it's very much like an agile approach. So what we're doing is we're testing as we go along, just to make sure that if there's any tweaks, etc., just make it easier at the end. That building on the left-hand side there is the central services hub that we're just going over now. This is the one that's a bit like a community centre. It's going to have faith in it, it's going to have learning in it, it's going to have a triage for any sort of like dental problems, health problems in general, classrooms, that type of thing. And we'll also kind of host some of the smaller workshops that will be required. It'll have a library. So as you come in on the ground floor, as you can see, it's going to be quite an open space. And obviously, the idea here is that it should be very inviting, that prisoners feel it's somewhere that they can go, they can interact with each other. And again, remember, this prison is about rehabilitation. So it's about getting them used to being in that sort of environment. The building we're about to now go on into is the workshop. Absolutely colossal, this building. It's like an aircraft hangar. But basically, this workshop will cater for 500 men at a time. And it will have various forms of light and heavy industry workshops. And here, the ask is that men should be given the skills that they require for when they actually leave custody. So in terms of what's going to be offered, that's really down to the new operator, which I think everyone knows is Serco. So Serco are currently meeting with various different businesses to look at what can actually go into that particular workshop. And then this building here is obviously very important. This is the entry building. And as you come in, this is what visitors will walk into. And the next bit is designed so it feels like airport security. So when children walk through, they'll feel like they've gone through an airport security into this enormous visits hall. The glass on the right-hand side is all ballistic glass. There's a children's play area out there. So again, the families kind of feel it's a conducive environment to actually sit together and talk and hopefully establish plans for the future. That is not a house block. That is actually Lend-Lease's offices, which, as we've said before, people thought was a house block in the wrong place, but no, it's not. As you can see, absolutely huge, amazing build. Lend-Lease have been very, very supportive in terms of the neighbourhood, traffic. I'm not saying we haven't had issues, we have had some issues, but at the end of the day, I think to produce what I can only describe as a mini campus in the middle of Leicester is just absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to stop sharing that and perhaps firstly ask, did you find that useful to actually show you the drone?
That was amazing. Yeah, on my list was, can we have a site visit? But do we need one now? We just sit here in our seats and have to use our legs to go and have a site visit. So yeah, it's looking really fantastic. So it's gone up really quick, hasn't it, when you think where we were? So Yeah, but I think members would still appreciate maybe a visit if you can arrange that at some point. That would be great. I think. Les?
I was just going to say, yes, Chair, we do need a site visit because I've been down twice. And Raj, I can't believe how much it's progressed since I was down there.
I think this is the wonders of modern methods of construction, I guess. What a good advert it is for that.
Yeah. But what I'm really taken with, Raj, is how the way that you're looking after the families and inviting the families and making it children friendly. I think that's really inspired. So well done for that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Les. I'd like to take all the feedback, positive feedback for that, but I can't claim all of that. But just going back to your point, Chair, in terms of a visit, I would like to offer the group a visit to site. I don't know whether you saw, but Lendlease actually have what we call a viewing platform. A lot of the services are open at the moment, and we have got mains power as well to some of the buildings. But what we could certainly do is host a visit to the viewing platform where you're actually on site. You can see everything. It won't need you to actually sort of like don your PPE. I'm sure some of you might want to do that at some point, but maybe not just now, because as I say, the infrastructure is not all sealed up. But if you'd like to come back to me with some dates, then certainly can look at sorting that out for you. Not a problem.
Okay. Yeah. If I pass that to Ewan, can you follow that up for us, Ewan, and get some dates sent out for the.
Rick and I'll sort it. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks, Ewan. Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Raj, that was a brilliant video. Really enjoyed it and brings the whole project to life. And one of the interesting things about seeing the drone fly over is I think I spotted some solar panels on a building or two. And if that is correct, what's the idea about the generation of electricity from the solar panels for the prison?
Yeah, it's a integral part, if you like. I mean, we're fairly new in our prisons to reliance on solar panels. So I think the HMP Five Wells and Fossway are a bit of a trailblazer when it comes to these, to look at how we can use them, where we can use them. So Serco are currently looking at all of that to look at what they would use basically for power generated by the solar panels versus something else. As you can imagine, resilience is probably the most important part of the prison. So I think that both of those prisons are going to help us do that, because of course our third prison is all electric. And going to be heavily reliant on solar. So we need these two to actually help us educate, but it is up to the operators to make that decision.
That's great. Thanks, Josh.
Lovely. Thanks very much for bringing that, Raj. That was really good. So yeah, we'll look forward to visit soon to the viewing platform. So
can I just ask a favour, Chair? I didn't ask Holly a question because I knew we were running out of time, but I was just wondering whether that service is available within prisons, knowing that these prisoners that we're building this asset for are actually towards the end of their sentences. It is about rehabilitation, and whether the group want to be introduced to Serco to maybe look at whether they could actually tie up and maybe offer something to the prisoners. I'm happy to facilitate that if that's of any use.
Yeah, no, I'm open to anything to rehabilitate. Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, now you've got loads more hands go up now.
Oh, sorry.
Kay.
I was just going to say that's probably our, we've got licenses and things like that. So it might be suitable for men being released on their post-sentence supervision, but certainly the post-custody licenses, we would expect, if it was needed, that work would be addressed via the accredited programme and licence conditions and things.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mick?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, fantastic. I haven't been to HMP Gartree, as it was, for a long time, and I cannot believe the difference. So it's really exciting. One of the things I'd ask, if possible, is early engagement with Serco from our perspective, so that we can consider how we can plan to prevent responses in the future, because prisons do, as you can imagine, become a challenge for us from an operational perspective. So those things may already be happening, but if we could probably get together, Raj, outside of this meeting, it'd be really useful to start to think about our response activities and prevention, of course, so we don't respond.
Absolutely. Mick, if you just want to drop me a line separately, and then I'll put you in contact with the right people.
Thank you.
No problem.
Is that an old hand, Les?
No, it's a new one, if I may, Chair.
On very quickly, then we'll move on.
Oh, it's just more praise for Raj and the team, because I'm just looking at the stats dashboard at the bottom of the report, Raj. I mean, that is stunning. I mean, it's not just really good. It is absolutely stunning when you look at the achievements to date compared to where the targets were. I really don't know what to say. It is absolutely amazing. And that local spend and engagement with SME community, thank you very much. And you know why I'm saying that. That is brilliant. Hats off to the team.
Lovely. Thanks a lot for Les. And yes, happy to facilitate. Look forward to meeting, I think, the majority of people in person on site. And until next time, you know how to contact us. So Rick, I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Raj. Okay, we'll move on back to item 10 now. So Children and Families Wellbeing Service, pages 15 to 18. And over to you, Carly.
Thank you, Chair. It's a difficult gig to follow, isn't it? Such great presentations and drone footage. But I'll assume everyone's read the report that I've provided and just work from that basis. My name's Carly. I'm one of the 3 service managers for the Children and Family Wellbeing Service. I cover youth and justice, but I'm here today to talk to you all on behalf of one of my colleagues around the evolution of the Supporting Families programme, which previously we've reported to this board on when it was called the Troubled Families programme. So I'll just take you through the salient points really. You'll see from paragraphs 4 onwards that we've had funding secured for 22-23 and funding in agreement for the 3 years of the programme. That funding's really crucial actually because it provides all of the workforce and the services that you receive across the county from the Children and Family Wellbeing Service. So that's from youth into family, for the coordination of programmes such as Triple P parenting and all of the interventions that we put in place. So we've brought this here today because the onward journey of the Supporting Families programme really is based on the fundamentals of partnership working. So we thought it was really relevant to you all. You'll see a real link in the report in relation to domestic abuse and parental conflict, which has followed through the board that we were in earlier this morning, and obviously from the presentation from the Jenkins Centre. But we're seeing parental conflict, domestic abuse as real referral mechanisms into our service, particularly from the police and from schools, and we're creating opportunities working with partners, public health to resolve and obviously put some intervention in there. We've trained a number of partners, including staff from Children and Family Wellbeing Service and Children's Social Care, in a Reducing Parental Conflict programme, because we recognise that not everything is domestic abuse as such, but actually there's a layer before that where there's disruptive behaviour in relationships that contributes to stress, anxiety, worklessness. And it was a programme that was led by the Department of Works and Pensions. So I've mentioned Triple P already, and that again has got an element of it. It's a general parenting programme. It's got a specialist intervention for parents that have got children that have got special requirements, disabilities and needs, but there's also an element of that programme which is focused on transitions, and that transition is about the breakdown of relationship between parents where they're separating or divorcing, and how parents can work together effectively for the best outcomes of their children. So moving into the current year, our real focus is on the continuation of the Supporting Families programme. The programme is financially contributed through grant funding, but a large part of it is payment by results, which is really based on us as a partnership, showing that we're working with families and that we're achieving not just achieving outcomes, but they're outcomes that really show some change and some distance travelled for those families. And that, as I've mentioned earlier, that part of funding is all kind of circumvents back into the workforce that deliver in the Children and Family Wellbeing Service, that deliver those services. The current piece of work, and it's a really important one that we're working on, my colleague Ellie, is a needs assessment across the Early Help Partnership. And that's really looking at the maturity of our partnership, where we are and where we need to be. And it's looking at key areas around workforce. So what do we do collaboratively, what training we do, what opportunities there are. It's looking at communities. It's looking at family voice and our leadership as a collaborative, so not as individual agencies, but how do we lead in certain geographical areas? I guess the biggest one is data, and that's always the stumbling block, isn't it? And the real hurdle is how we share data, but that's a key component, and that's one of the major areas that the Early Help Partnership is working on, because we need that data, or at least be on a journey with data maturity to be able to claim the funding to move the programme forward. There are, as part of the Early Help Partnership, there are a number of representatives from districts, boroughs, across police and health that are represented on there. So your colleagues are proactively working with us on trying to resolve that and trying to move that forward and to assess our maturity. And the outcome of the assessment in those 5 areas will really drive the priority for the partnership in line with the Supporting Families programme over the next year. So I can't report on those at the moment because it's in the assessment phase, but that's how it will move on. I guess just in terms of, for the board, that there's risk in this, in that if we can't evidence that our partnership is moving into stages into maturity, then we'll risk some funding within that. But the Early Help Partnership are working on resolving that. And I think that's really it in terms of just an update on the Supporting Families programme. We're also working at rolling out the Family Hub programme, and when we've got more information on that, it will probably be useful for us to come and present the Family Hub model to this board, so that you all get an idea of what that looks like and the work that's gone on in partnership to deliver that. So just from my report, I've asked the board to note the contents and the update that's provided today. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Carly. And just so board aware, we didn't secure the funding, did we? The early funding for the family hubs from the government. We weren't one of the first ones to trial the family hubs, but we are obviously trying to do that type of work, but without the funding. So it is quite tough at the minute. But I think there's a real thread running through this morning about domestic abuse, and this is really about spotting those early signs, isn't it? Encouraging healthy relationships, and I know schools are doing a lot more along those lines of healthy relationships. So it's trying to nip this in the bud before people get to the crisis point where they need other services. So yeah, it's key for our partners and all our staff to understand and spot those signs of early domestic abuse that might turn into something much more, isn't it? And nipping it in the bud as soon as possible. So yeah, is there any questions for Carly for anyone? And we'll just note that report.
Could I add that I guess one of the key opportunities that we've got in collaboration with public health is the new 11+ service that we are commissioning now with in-house at the county council, and a big feature of that is around working with children that are in school at the earliest opportunity around really good relationships, what a good relationship should look like. And so hopefully we'll be able to get that messaging much sooner than those children and family that then present into our service. So in that kind of universal space, to be really robust about that as well.
Lovely. I think you've just stolen some of Josh's thunder, but that's fine. Les, do you have a question?
Yeah, if I may, Chair. This might not be necessarily the right forum to ask it, but I'll ask it, and it could perhaps be taken offline. But I'm curious. Is there a statistical link between domestic abuse, children with special educational needs and disabilities, and vice versa? I'm just curious as to, is there a causation effect, but particularly with children with special educational needs, and how their parents are coping and managing those situations? Just curious if there is a link.
I don't know if you want to take that. It's quite a wide question, that one.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult without any kind of, I mean, what we could do is we could, I guess it's a number of us across as board members and representatives that would have a contribution to answering that. But I couldn't give you that answer right now, but I've just seen Gurjit's hands gone up and she might be able to provide an oversight on that one. We definitely see a link within our service with a number of different inputs, whether that's children that then go on to commit offences or then go on to be in disruptive relationships. I think what I can say is domestic abuse is a key factor in terms of the traumatic input and stress that children living in that contribute to poor outcomes.
So
But
it just
contribute.
for me, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Kylie. It kind of slips into that earlier and earlier identification, earlier and earlier intervention, and all that. So I'm just really curious. Can we use stats and statistics and causal links to actually help develop that earlier and earlier identification? Of course, then that feeds into the school system and indeed nursery class. So anyway, Gurjit, I guess.
I suppose, I'll come to Gurjit in a minute. I suppose, Les, having children is hard enough at times, isn't it? But having a child with additional needs in a relationship that's not as it should be puts even more pressure on it. So it will have an impact on how parents cope with that child as well. So if there's underlying domestic abuse, it's more likely to escalate quickly under that. But I'll go to Gurjit.
Yeah, because you'll know, Deb, I have a particular insight into that particular arena. So I'm just really curious.
Yeah, I mean, there's been lots of international research on this, and I know Grace Strong has been here and talked about trauma-informed work, the first 1,000 days, brain development, even in pregnancy, and what domestic abuse in the home, the effect of that has on the unborn fetus. So there is a lot of evidence, and we do a lot of work in that early support, early help space with families. And Carly mentioned parental conflict. So within the organisation, we're doing a lot of work, and in fact, we've got an event on Monday where we're bringing domestic abuse providers and staff together to talk about parental conflict, so that trying to prevent parental conflict and the pressures going into the domestic abuse space. So we're driving that work forward to see what we can do in terms of that. And again, children with special needs do put pressure. It is a pressure on households, and then you bring in financial pressures and other pressures. So in short, the answer is there are clear links, and there is a lot of international research. I've got loads of books if you'd like to borrow any, Councillor Phillimore.
Okay, lovely. Thanks, Gurjit.
I don't need to. I've got a wife who's an encyclopedia on special educational needs. So thank you.
Lovely. No more questions for you, Carly. So thank you very much for bringing that. And it'd be good to hear some more about the family hubs and how that's working as we start to develop that programme a bit more. So this nicely, I think, links into the stuff that Josh is now going to talk about with our public health update. So over to you, Josh. I know it's a really long report, and I did read through all the toolkit, which I presume you're just going to identify but not give us loads of information. But I did start to question my own relationships as I started to read that as well. So I've given myself some therapy as well as I was reading through that. But over to you, Josh, now.
I'm sure we've all done it, not just yourself. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was asked to provide an update on the recommissioning of domestic abuse and sexual violence services, but I thought it would be helpful to give a sort of broader public health update on the range of services that we commission, provide or fund in other ways to keep communities safe. So in terms of the remit around domestic abuse, we last updated in December of last year. We were going through the implementation stage at that time for a contract start date of 1st of April. Everything ran pretty smoothly. We've now got the system live, which commenced on the 1st of April. I won't go into the detail, but I've put in bullet points what the system offer is around the helpline engagement service, the locality service, the sexual violence support service, and then for Leicestershire, we've also got the safe accommodation service within that. And again, I don't want to go into too much detail around the wider public health offer, as everything's contained within the report. Just some key bits around the work that we're doing in the coming year. My team are working closely with Gurjit around the DA Act funding and the commissioning intentions and supporting around that work. Also, we're looking at expanding the local area coordinator offer, which I've described in the report as well, and I've included an attachment that provides the links into your district and borough areas. We're looking to expand not just the team, but also certain areas that have got greater needs to increase the capacity within those areas that already have local area coordinators. Carly touched upon the 11 plus service. So we currently have an offer, a 0 to 19 offer that's provided by LPT. The 11 plus element going forwards will be coming into children and family services, while in September it will be in its sort of minimum form, and what we can put in place by then, the sort of overarching goal of that is to have sort of 3 focus areas, one around emotional health and well-being, one around healthy relationships, and one kind of around the sort of substance misuse arena. It is early days, but that's the kind of vision of where we're hoping that service will go. A lot of work to be done to get us there, but a really great and exciting project to have, because we've always had that externally commissioned. Within the remit of substance misuse, we're looking at setting up a drug and alcohol deaths review panel. We haven't had one, not since I've been in post anyway, and it's to look at deaths that could have quite easily been prevented, and to look at the interactions individuals have had to identify lessons learned. So we're not wanting to play the blame game. This is purely about lessons learned and sort of changing the way the system works. I suspect a lot of it will be around data sharing, communication, partnership working, but I think, you know, we need to really be looking at those the deaths that we get through. We get a wealth of data from Turning Point, the provider of the service, but what we don't get is the deaths that occur outside of the service, so those that aren't interacting with the service at all. It is a work in progress. We're hoping to implement that in summer. At the moment, the gap that we've got is trying to identify suitable representation from the health sector to get that information around interactions in A&E, interactions with the GP, and also around social care interactions, because without that, we're not going to know where we could have done something differently. We're also in the process of recommissioning the homelessness support service. So Public Health has a remit around providing the support to individuals who are in safe accommodation, around accessing benefits. At the moment, we focus on the non-priority need cohort, but we're working with the Chief Housing Officers Group to look at closer working with districts and boroughs around that offer, and trying to join up as best we can. So we will, again, we started off, we're looking at the sort of what our proposed model could look like, how we can better the service with the funding that we've got. So we will be going through the processes of consultation. We've done an initial engagement, so we've had several stakeholder workshops. We'll look at using that information to develop the draft model. Then we'll be going out to consultation and following the motions through that. So I will give you updates further down the line. And then more recently, since having a new addition to my team, we're trying to do some more work with our community safety partnerships within the districts and boroughs around how public health can support, whether that's around development of your plans for the next 3 years or anything else that we can take back to the department as a collective. But that's early days, and that was it in terms of the update. Everything else is within the report. I'm happy to take any questions, but please just bear in mind it's a sort of departmental offer, so I may have to take a lot of questions back for responses.
Thanks, Josh. And no, not to indicate at the moment. I suppose from my view, there's a wealth of work and recommissioning going on at the moment. So, and I get the sense that the trauma informed is sort of having that golden thread through all the recommissioning of services. So I think we will find that services are really changing at the moment and sort of enable them to be fit for the future with the knowledge that we've gained from trauma informed and things like that. So I think there's a lot of exciting stuff going, a lot of hard work going in at the moment, but there will be a lot of changes about how services to run going forward. So really exciting time, I think, for all of us to be involved in this, but obviously at a difficult time when we're switching services over and sort of bringing some in-house and stuff, but there's lots of opportunity to make improved services going forward. So yeah, I think it's a sort of watch this space, how we're going, but obviously support us as we're doing these changes as well. So any other questions for Joshna going forward? But if you haven't already read the toolkit, then take yourself through it. It's quite enlightening and quite a good read, to be honest. So yeah, no, thank you for that. Really found that really, and hopefully that will. Is that going through? Obviously, it's within in-house with Leicestershire, but we're obviously sharing this with all the partners and things like that. Is that how it's going to be, Joshna, this toolkit?
I only know as much as I've put in the report, but yeah, I suspect the idea is that we sort of start small and then and grow it. Is the intention is to go wider. I think we were sort of just doing it internally first, and then with the intention it would grow. Yeah, I think it should. I think it's really a useful document to read through, that anyone really that's within this environment, really good document. So thanks very much for that, Joshna. Okay. We'll move on to item 12 now, which is the Safer Communities Performance Report, Q4. So over to you, Rick.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Q4 Performance Report has been circulated. It includes the latest link to the current performance data, which is the data that underpins the report itself. And just a reminder that the report is broad county-wide trends, so performance in localities may differ. The report summary, essentially the report is very similar to the previous report that we had. It broadly follows the same trends. Most of the crime categories remain relatively stable and are starting to show a slow upward trend. That may be the COVID effect, effectively. As in previous reports, the violence with injury rate continues a sustained upward trajectory. But we've had that for the last 10 reports in actual fact. The youth offending data is very positive. And the final thing that I would pick out of the report is the MARAT data is continuing, the repeat referrals are continuing to go down. We're currently at 36%, and just bear in mind that we were at 51% last June. So having risen quite sharply, we've now dropped back down again. The recommended safe lives threshold is 40%, so we're below that. Going to the individual areas, as I've said, in relation to crime, the overall crime has stabilised during COVID, but it's now showing a steady rise in all the main categories, but it is a very slow rise. Violence with injury, risen for the last 10 quarters. Reducing offending and re-offending, which is the next category. This is local data and it's collated in arrears. It's collated in a 12-month rolling basis, and it's showing exceptionally low rates. And again, because it is collected in arrears, it might well be the COVID effect yet again, but you'll see from the data within the report, it's very positive. So that's great news. Going on to repeat victims and victimisation and vulnerable victims, the MARAT repeat data I've already said is down to 36%. UAVA referrals are showing a year-on-year increase. Obviously, that's now been recommissioned, so going forward, it won't be UAVA data, but certainly the data will, the source will be different, but the data will be reported upon in future reports. There's several additional indicators that have been added to the report. Those are there for you to read, but the one that I pick out from the report is the domestic violence with injury, which is a subset of the previous data that I've mentioned, the violence with injury data. So it's going to be an increase there. Antisocial behaviour, two main areas that I report on there. It's the soft data, which is the data from surveys, showing very positive, having gone down previously. The hard data, which is police data and Sentinel data, you'll see from the report that the police data was showing an increase in the environmental category, but that seems to have recovered. I've no doubt that is related to refuse sites opening up again, so that individuals can actually throw away their refuse. Personal ASB is relatively stable. although relatively high in a couple of localities. Moving on to preventing terrorism and radicalisation as a category, we report on hate crime in relation to this. As I've said on previous reports, the rates are very, very low, but they are very, very slowly increasing, 1.71 per thousand there, which is an increase on last year, 1.42. Very much a report very similar to last year, to the previous report, sorry. So nothing outstanding within that report. I'd ask the board to note it.
Thanks, Rick. Some positives, some negatives, but it seems fairly stable, doesn't it? Which I suppose is good in one sense, isn't it? Fairly stable. But I think the ASB satisfaction is a good sign, isn't it? That people are starting to see that that's stabilising. Gurjit.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things to pick up, if I may. Just in terms of the MARAC data there, members may be aware that there has been a MARAC review. The police led on commissioning that. We now have the recommendations. So that is something that we are looking at, and we are looking at the figures and the referral rates and looking at how we can increase those and support partners to make referrals in. So we're aware of where referrals are coming from and where they're not coming from. So there's work underway on that. So we'll bring an update on that. And then the other thing I just wanted to pick up was that the Home Office have recently conducted a review on how we manage prevent, as in counter-terrorism, across Leicestershire. And I'll bring that to the next meeting. It's really positive. Our partnership approach to that is really positive. And we've been commended on the work that we're doing. There's some things clearly that we can do more of, which we will look at, but on the whole it's a really positive picture. So we'll bring that to the next meeting with an action plan of how we're going to address a couple of the things that have been picked up, namely things like mandatory training and just corporate things like that. So I'll bring that to the next meeting, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Gurjit. Carly?
Thanks, Chair. I've popped a comment in the chat, but the key performance indicators from the Youth Justice Board are changing in October, and they're currently under consultation, but I don't expect any of them to change. They're not the traditional ones that we've been contributing to this dashboard. So I'll have a conversation with Rick outside of this to look at what we do. But I think there's potentially some of the KPIs might be useful for the wider partnership, potentially around serious youth violence levels across the area, particularly around racial disparity, so around Black, Asian and multi-ethnic children, around the kind of school to prison pipeline. So there's probably quite a bit in there that's more meaningful than the KPIs that we've been reporting on before. So I'll work with Rick, but I'm happy to bring a paper if anyone wants to know more about how we're being measured in youth justice in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be good to bring back, actually, Carly, I think, because that's what we want to do, is reduce the children offending, isn't it, and the reoffending, obviously, because they're going to adults as continuing along that route, isn't it? So it's really important we
and some of the
get
work
that early.
Yeah, I know Kate's got a paper later that links in with a piece of work that we're all doing collaboratively as well. But I'll speak to Rick and I'll put it on the agenda and when we know more about what it looks like. Thank you.
Brilliant. Any other questions on this paper for Rick? No? Okay. Thanks very much for that, Carly. Okay, we'll move on to item 13, the antisocial behaviour system governance. And Charlotte, over to you.
Good morning. Thanks, Chair. I won't go through the full report. You've got access to it. I just wanted to sort of concentrate on any notable developments. The first things mainly is that the bite-sized training that was being offered, we've now completed a group of 4. They've gone down really well according to the feedback that we've had, so that's really positive. And I'm currently working on looking into a sustainable training package for all council staff moving forward that will complement the training package that the police currently have. Charnwood are kindly testing our case management module as we speak. We met about that yesterday, so that's going well. The RRD, so the review, retain, delete module that we were in the process of getting created, is in full swing, and we're looking to get that by the end of the summer ready to be tested and out for training, which is nice because that means that we'll be bringing ourselves back in line with GDPR. The system user guide, which is another large piece of work that I'm working on, is looking at an actual physical user guide for all users that again remains with that sustainability. So once my role ends, that there will be a user guide in place for people to access and use going forward. So that's quite a large piece of work I'm working on. Currently looking at a review of the service that we're getting from Vantage, which is the company that provides us our Sentinel system, and we're going to be looking at whether this is sustainable going forward before we sign any new contracts between the partners and with Vantage. I know I brought to your guys' attention at the last, my first meeting with you, about the poor data held within the system and the risk that that presented to us partnership. I'm pleased to say we deleted 25,000 poor data records, so where the person was blank, anonymous, unknown, just clogging up the system. And I know the police are going to be extremely happy with that, because a lot of them sort of sat within a large piece of work that they were completing. So that means that there's a lot less work for them to do in relation to that. So slowly the system is being cleared out, and it just means that the system going forward will run smoother and hopefully be a bit more productive. So I'm really pleased about that. I was quite excited about that specific. I'll move on to quickly the key issues for the partnership. I just wanted to make you aware that the cost of the system that we currently pay to Vantage at the moment is what is going to be looked at as part of the review with Vantage and our contract with them. I don't want to put any scares on anybody. We're not looking to get rid of Sentinel, but we just want to look at seeing the partnership pay a large amount of money into Vantage every year. So just looking at the services that we're receiving from them and whether we're getting sort of the best of what we're paying for, really. I haven't got anything else, just for the board to note the content of the report. Gurjit, I just wanted to ask quickly, did you want me to update the board in relation to the Ombudsman's finding for the community triggers?
Through you, Chair, if we can spare the couple of minutes, I think it'd be really helpful.
Yep, no, we're on track. So yeah, go ahead, Charlotte.
Okay, thank you. I will share my screen if that's okay, and I'll circulate, I'll pass it to you and to circulate to everybody. But there was a document that we received from the Social Care Ombudsman in relation to a review of let me just, it's the wrong one. Sorry, just bear with me. Find the report. It was Coventry Council were reviewed in relation to a community trigger. And I've just noted in yellow here, but that's just sort of for my notes more than anything. So it was a review that was carried out by on Coventry City Council, where they were considering what else they could do to help a man subject to homophobic abuse. The report, the guy was reporting his neighbours to the police and his housing association. As a result of ongoing reports, there was a community trigger panel meeting. And from that meeting, the Ombudsman found that the council should have proactively looked at how to address the antisocial behaviour, but instead merely reviewed the police and housing association's response to his concern. And at that point, they decided not to take any further action. They said the work that had been completed was necessary. They'd followed their approach, like we have our tiered approach. They'd followed their approaches. They were all within their policy and their procedures, and that we're going to take no further action. An important thing that came out of the Ombudsman report was that they criticised the council's lack of initiative in helping tackle the situation, and also found that the man was not invited to the panel meeting, was something for everybody to note, and that the council's record keeping was poor. they also kind of, and I think this is quite a pertinent statement, that it appeared that the council had misunderstood the purpose of the trigger and its proactive role in finding solutions to antisocial behaviour. And I think it's that specific statement that I kind of wanted to bring to the board to make aware. I know we've had discussions around community triggers, and I've spoke at large with Charnwood in relation to these, but as a result of sort of the findings within this report, and moving forwards with the work I'm doing with Charnwood and the case management module, there's been an awful lot of discussion around risk assessment and whether we are finding discrepancies in the way that, whether it's specific local authorities, whether it's specific officers, are risk assessing. And it's something that I've spoken with Gurjit with at length. We'd like to, I'll bring a full report, Chair, to the board, but we'd like to, as part of the ASB delivery group, are looking at an ASB county-wide policy, so that we're in line with what our policies, our ASB policies, are stating. But specifically, I'd like that to really focus on how we risk assess, so that we can gain some continuity. And I think reports of this finding really highlight that actually risk and vulnerability and the victim's perspective is so important when looking to find a solution, and that we don't so heavily rely upon our tiered approach, which is excellent, and it's there for its purpose, but actually that we should be looking at more problem solving approaches, and then being very victim led. So, and I think we will find more of these. Tim said that very similar findings within his community triggers, that actually it's about trying to find a solution for the victim, not by what it says within our policy. So I will bring a full report to the next meeting, Chair, but I just wanted to note it today. Myself and Gurjit discussed this, and Tim said the same, that it's very interesting, the findings of this report. I will circulate it for everybody, but that's all I just wanted to bring to you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it'd be good to read that, actually, because I think that's what people think, isn't it? The community trigger is just to really, have we followed what we should have done, the tiered approach, but that doesn't help the victim, does it? So I think victim's voice is not included, is it, so much in the community trigger or in the work that we do. So we need to look at the victim's voice a lot more. Malay, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much. I was wondering where to raise it. Actually, that last bit was very useful, because we've got a community trigger in Melton at the moment. Now, one thing we found is you are not able to fill the form in online. You have to print it off and fill it in manually. And I just wondered if this is something that we should be looking at, or if there's someone here today who could actually look at that as an issue. Thank you.
I presume that's your district. Is it you're talking about your district, Malays? You should be able to.
Well, I'm talking about my district, but I think I'm talking about the community trigger form, which I imagine is standard for us all.
Do you want me to jump in there, Chair? I wasn't part of the community trigger working group, but I know when the community triggers were, the policy was written, it was down to each individual locality to sort of formulate how they get their community trigger information out to their customers. And I think some were putting it as a print off form and wanted them sending in. I agree. I think having an online available option. I'm sure, Councillor, if there is another area that is doing it, I can check with Northwest. I think they possibly have an online form. There's no reason why that some support can't be helped over there for you. No worries.
Yeah,
that'd be very useful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Tim.
Yeah, Chair, just a couple of quick brief points. Just on that one I wasn't going to mention, but yes, just to confirm that Charnwood has an online form, so obviously it can be done. So yeah, if Northwest have got that, I'm sure Charlotte will kick in and do that. It was just ready to bring this group up to speed. I don't know how much. I only got a minute's notice to attend today because Julie Robinson is leaving the organisation today, so it literally was last minute step in. So from that point of view, I've sat on the National Community Safety Partnership Review. I'm sure this group probably where the national government is doing a review of community safety partnerships. I attended a seminar there on the 28th of April, and quite an interesting input for 2 hours. One of the big things was just linking into what Charlotte said. The government certainly are very keen to raise the profile of community triggers per se. One of their big issues is probably linking up to the local government ombudsman found there. Our experiences at Charnwood, we had an ombudsman case and we were found guilty of maladministration. That being the situation that if we don't, and again, I push that other districts down the same route, if you are aware that you have a repeat victim who has triggered 3 complaints of ASB in 6 months or 1 hate incident, if you do not signpost them to the community trigger process, then you too would be found guilty of maladministration. So that's a big learning curve for many. So that's just another ombudsman case to link in with what Charlotte was saying. But as I say, is moving forward, I think community triggers is going to feature even greater. The government are looking at bringing in legislation to tie the OPCC's office to community triggers, and that's what they were directing us to, with CSPs in the future probably having to provide the OPCC office with a ASB reduction strategy. Again, we're linking into community triggers on that one. So yeah, triggers, need to say we've got 5 in this performance year, bringing us to a total of 36. So I certainly think, as you say, triggers is going to be quite a core piece of work. But again, it's certainly worth looking at that national CSP review and making sure we have something on this board that relates back to that. That's it, Chair.
Just picking up on that, Tim, is there something that we should be doing at sort of this level to review all the community triggers across the county, or does that already happen, just to see the themes that we're picking up? Because obviously the community trigger is there for a reason, but what we really want to do is address the issues that lead to the community trigger, make sure we're getting in earlier so we don't get the community trigger. So if there's a large amount of learning across the county that we should be taking from these, is it a piece of work that is happening or should be happening?
It's a valid point. I think, as you know, as our ex-chair, we certainly do that. We raise up the themes as a standing item to our CSP. I have forwarded our paper to the strategic leads for the police, because again, a lot of the things, 70% thereabouts of our triggers were police-led, so we have shared the learning themes for them. We've obviously included an action plan for our district, and again, as I brought Charlotte up to speed the other day, risk is a major part of community triggers risk management. So we have put in a 3-tiered approach and enhanced all the training of our staff, and we're soon to be having risk management training for our front line. But I'm glad to be part of that. Again, the ASB strategic group could pick up those themes, or the ASB delivery group. But no, I'd welcome that structure, because I do find, we found repeating themes, and I've run through all our triggers now. So we have addressed them and we're seeing less of them, but it may be an issue for, as you say, for this board maybe, or for some leave this board.
Good. Is that something we can look into, do you think, that we look across rather than just the districts? Because obviously they're owned by the districts or the local police, MPA, isn't it? But we need to probably look a bit more strategically about what we're doing across the county.
Yeah, I mean, Charlotte and I have got had a conversation about this and have discussed how we will do this. We've got a meeting this afternoon, I think, or next week. So we'll pick it up and take that forward. It's something that we're very aware of over just through discussions over the last few months. So yes, we'll pick that up.
Okay, thank you. And Tim, send our best wishes to Julie. I didn't realise she was leaving today, so send our best wishes to her for a future. Lee.
Yes, thank you. I think we're on our 36 trigger now. Last time I had a conversation with Tim, but I think the situation is it's not just the district or borough councils. I think it's because it's multi-agency teamwork. That's where the gaps lie, because we all have our intentions, best intentions to address issues early and when the situation arises, but we all have to be on the same page. So I think that's the difficulty when we work within the multi-agency teams. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, that support's probably going to come from the work that Gurjit's just said with Charlotte, isn't it? Looking how we do that across the county, so we're all following the same route, isn't it? Rather than individual districts trying to get, partners on board. We need to do that from a county level, don't we? Just one question. This is probably more for officers on call and partners, really, about the improvements that Charlotte's undertaken with Sentinel. Have you noticed a difference with the system and how you do things within your own areas? Anyone sort of got any feedback, good or bad, I suppose, at this point about how we're doing and Charlotte's role? Is anyone willing to share any feedback? Gurjit.
I'm a bit biased, but I've been having feedback from officers that Charlotte's been phenomenal in role. So it'd be really lovely to note that the work that she's picked up and is driving forward has had a real impact, not only across the county, but I've had city chief officers commend the work as well. So that's the feedback I've had. But Tim's got his hand up, as has Sarah.
Yeah. OK, Tim.
Yeah, I just second what Gage was saying. I think it's been a great success. Certainly something, I know it's time limited, that I think we need to look at as a partnership across our law. So yeah, just second Gage's comments, and thanks Charlotte for her work she's done so far.
Brilliant, that's good to hear. Rebecca, you look like you're sitting on the moon, but
She does.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'd just like to second all that. Really about the Charlotte's input. It really has made a difference having someone to grip and lead on driving the issues forward and voices to be heard.
that's really good to hear. How long's your role for, Charlotte? When are you due to finish?
I'm seconded for 2 years, so I started in October. It'll be going for not next October, 2023 October. Okay. So yeah, still some more life left in me. Yeah, you've made me blush a little bit, Chair, but thank you.
No, I'm just thinking, obviously, it's good to get some feedback, isn't it, and review the role and whether there's a role going forward, whether it's not, I know you're having a good clear out at the moment and that's not going to be, but there might be a role going forward that the CSPs and the police and partners would want to continue at some sort of level of overview coordination. So it's probably something we don't need to pick up yet, but I think it's probably something we need to bear in mind before your role actually finishes at that point, that whether there's a need for us as partnership to have some sort of coordinator doing some work with the Sentinel system and stuff. So okay, that's good to know. So we probably need to put that on the action log, Ewan, just so we're aware of that date, so it sits there that we can review that before we get to that point. Okay. And I just picked up about your bit about Charmwood doing the case management pilot. So when's that sort of likely to have some feedback for us to come back to board to look into that?
Hopefully for next meeting, Chair, will be my aim. It's live. It's being live tested at the moment, actually. So the work that Charmwood are doing on the system will be live. So we haven't got to then move that from the test system onto the live system. And it's going to be a slow drip feed of introducing partners in as we go. At the moment, Charmwood, Tim, you might want to jump in, but Charmwood are looking at putting a couple of community triggers and testing it from a community trigger perspective. Okay. It won't just be community triggers that are managed on there. It'll be large cases, ongoing cases, repeat victims, high risk cases. So what I'll probably look to do is introduce it to different authorities to bring in different cases at a time, slowly introducing new officers, so we're not getting a sort of a huge influx of new people on there using it all at once and not quite kind of understanding. So yeah, okay. There's a big training package with it that will happen. So once that's introduced to everybody, I'd like to see that by the end of this year, to the end of this financial year, that it will be up and running. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. If you want to come back and update us on that, that'd be great. So thank you. That's good to know. It's making a difference for all the partners, because I think they were all struggling, weren't we, as to where they were with Sentinel, and it was in a bit of a mess, to be honest. So it's really good to hear that the work you're doing is improving it. Okay, thank you for everyone for that input. Okay, we'll move on to item 14, which is the probation service. So Kay, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Kay Knowles, I'm Deputy Head of the Probation Service in LLR. Bob's done a report just for notes. I'm just going to pick out a couple of the key points in there. So we've been reunified now for 12 months, more or less to the day. And it's been a challenge, and it would have been a challenge regardless, but we've also had new buildings chucked in there coming out of the pandemic and operational delivery. So with also a running thread of recruitment and staffing issues for us in LLR. So we've taken the opportunity really of all that change to restructure. So if we weren't going through enough change, we restructured at the same time to kind of get it all done at once. But the exciting part of that is, as well as maintaining our city teams and our county teams specifically, there is the development of a female-only specialist team and also a young adult specialist team. So not been done before, as far as I'm aware, certainly not in the East Midlands. So we are pioneers for this. Work really closely with Carly, using her expertise of why we should be doing this. So so we're very much in our infancy in both teams, but it's just a different approach that we're going to be adopting for those two cohorts. alongside that, I think Bob's put in his report anyway, about our trauma-informed journey. We had an all-staff conference last month and George Hoskin did a presentation that just went down an absolute storm. It really enthused everybody, and we had everybody on there from admin staff through to programme facilitators, our unpaid work supervisors, to practitioners, and all management levels. So we're kind of starting that journey too, just to make sure we're aligned to the rest of the partnership in LLR. So although staffing has been difficult, we've got lots of trainee probation officers currently that are all dispersed around LLR, working closely with teams to try, and we just need to keep hold of the people we've got, get them through in time for those new trainees to qualify. So we will be in a much better position. So lots going on, lots to start and carry on. But I think that's about it. So just for the board to know, essentially.
Lovely, thanks, Kay. And as I've sort of spoke earlier about trauma informed, really good to see that that was enthusively received by all of that, because it is a totally different way of thinking, and I think we can all see the benefits so far of that thinking. So that's really good to see you're doing it. And yeah, I think it has been a traumatic time for all of you, but it sounds like you're coming out the other end, and I know recruitment's difficult for all of us at the moment, so fingers crossed that carries on for you. Carly.
Thanks, Chair. I just really want to comment because I think it's such an amazing approach that probation have taken in terms of not just around women, but the young adults as well, and recognising the bespoke need for something. We've been working towards this for over what feels like a decade now, to finally get here from the Young Adults Project 10 years ago, where we spoke about it, is really amazing. And I guess in relation to the districts and boroughs here, it's about how we transition some of our highest risk children who are transitioning to young adults into a team, and that we manage them seamlessly. Not that we're not doing that now, but it will have more kind of joint training and emphasis around it. So we're really excited about that opportunity, and we're excited to learn about all of the work that the team are doing with females, because we know that we're having a growing number of girls within youth justice, and so we want to take some of that learning. And our seconded probation officer in the county at the moment, it was a female specialist, so we're seeing some real joined up amazing work that's now, I guess, more solidified in a practice model that we've been doing kind of without the practice model for years. So I just want to say I feel that's amazing, and to recognise I guess the risk that probation have gone in terms of taking an innovative approach to these cohorts. Thank you.
Yeah, no, really good to see that transition is always a really difficult one, isn't it, where people do fall through the net, unfortunately, from transitioning from children to adults. So yeah, no, really good to see. But so it'd be good to see that work coming forward. Kay, if you come back and let us know how it's all going. So thank you very much for coming. No more questions for you. So we'll move on to our final main item, which is the multi-agency risk assessment conferences. So Kevin, over to you. Oh, Les, did you have a question?
Yeah, if I can, Chair, it's just quickly. I'm having to multitask at the minute, so I may have missed it. Is there an opportunity, perhaps with the probation service, to, and indeed the wider support services, to invite some of these individuals into effectively like a two-week internship, where they actually see what it looks like from your side as officers, and the kind of trauma that goes through the system, because they will just see it from their perspective. And I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to actually, just offer them 2 weeks, come and see what actually happens from our side of the world and what impacts they're having across the piece. Just a question. Thank you,
Chair. Shall I come back on that, Chair? Just in terms of, I think it's an interesting thought, and I know that Carly and I have spoken about having the user voice as a thread throughout our service as well. So we take kind of what's worked, what's not been useful in their experience for our service. I've got to be honest to say that I've not thought about that, so I've just scribbled it down there to have a think about.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
Chair, it's in relation to the last item. In actual fact, I've had a message from Kevin Wright. He's unfortunately he's been called away at very short notice, and if we can, with your leave, if we could hold that over till the September meeting.
Yeah,
I saw him online a second ago. He may
Yeah,
have joined.
I've just got the same message as well.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
It's okay. Rick, they discharged me. I've just raced down the 52 and the M1. I'm extremely tired, extremely unprepared, and my laptop, the hospital's Wi-Fi unfortunately did something to my laptop, so I've managed to get on. So I am here. So I'll do my best for you.
Apologies, Chair.
Kevin, I can load the slides for you if you want. Would that help?
That would really, really help at the moment. Yes, thank you.
Kevin, are you right? I mean, we're quite happy to delay to the next meeting if you want. We don't want to put you under any pressure if you just come out of hospital. So
that's okay. It's just a very long night. And
are you sure? Okay.
Yes.
We'll keep it short. Go ahead.
Okay. I received a communication from Rick in respects to putting something together from the MARAC, the Multi-Agency Risk Assessment Conference, in respects to the repeat cases for the MARAC. I understand that there'd been some concerns raised around potential percentage figures for the LLR returns. So I've put the PowerPoint together. I'm hoping that it sort of like reads okay to go through. So slide 1. Effectively, why is it important to identify and refer repeat cases? In short, it's really important to identify those repeat cases because clearly, prior to me doing the review of the MARAC in 2017-2018, the flagging of the repeat cases in not just the police but most of the agencies was very, very poor, if I'm going to be honest with that. We worked very hard during the development to identify with agencies, with the police, of how we could identify those repeats better. So over the last 2 or 3 years, we've actually seen those repeats being recorded far better in Leicestershire and Rutland. And also we moved to the daily MARAC, which we anticipated would bring a slight rise in the repeats because of the process. And it did. At one point we rose to 50%, 51% I think it was. But what we know from Safe Lives, the governing body, is that around 60% of victims that receive support through the MARACs, basically the abuse tends to drop off or cease altogether. But it tells us that around 40% of those that experience the abuse, it continues. And effectively, the reason for it being really, really important of identifying those repeats is to keep the focus of the agencies upon those cases, so that we can keep putting in the services, keep working with them until they're through their cycle, and where they are in their cycle to be able to break it. So that's why I put that first slide on, which I hope makes sense with that. If we go to the second slide.
I've moved it. Can you see this?
No,
I think I've got a slight delay.
I think it's a delay.
So why is it important? Basically, it's a systematic multi-agency response to victims assessed to be at risk of serious harm or homicide. Agencies need to continue to work together, especially on the repeat cases, to resolve the challenges and barriers preventing effectiveness. And again, that's been sourced from Safe Lives. If you want to go to the next slide for me. And again, the effectiveness here, again, it's all from the guidance that we get, but Safe Lives reviewed the repeat definition in 2018. So while I was going through trying to get the services to work together, the modus system identifying and flagging the repeats, they changed the definition on us. So when the definition changed, we basically did flag it to Safe Lives. We were only one of 2 forces that flagged it to them and said that the change of the definition will see a rise in repeat rates. They weren't overly sure how it would affect them, but we could see, because of the way in which we were going to start looking at our repeats and identifying repeats better, that ours would rise. But effectively, it went away from having to have a crime committed before it could be classed as a repeat, as to any incident or event. So effectively, even a civil argument over a civil order would come in as a repeat MARAC, whereas before they wouldn't. So lots of other criteria in there as well that came into it. So it meant that we got a wider criteria of cases being identified to bring into the MARAC. So we obviously identified it would rise on our percentages. Safe Lives recommends that the repeat cases currently indicates figures around 28 to 40%. That's what they recommend. This benchmark has not been changed post the repeat criteria, which is why we raised concern with that. The change in definition added the criteria which I've put on. So effectively unwanted direct or indirect contact from the perpetrator or their family, breach of police court bail, breaches of civil orders, and any dispute over child contact, property, divorce, separation. So before, where you had to have a crime for a repeat, now obviously those categories also come into it, and obviously lots of agencies do have incidents reported to them with those, so it brings in the extra cases for us. The criteria also wasn't on its own foreseeing the increase. We've seen new legislation coming in around the coercive controlling behaviour, which has also seen an increase of cases coming into the MARAC as a result. And hence, because that is usually, how can I put it, it's usually a series of events, and effectively it's not resolved in one sort of like intervention process. Each time it gets reported, it comes back in as a repeat. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the LLR MARAC figures, I just put something in there for a little bit of history, really. 2014, 15, 15, 16, 17, the LLR MARAC was recording repeat figures of around 30%. That was 30% of the cases that they had coming in at that time. The cases in that time were much lower than what the Safe Lives recommended. Post the changes to the definitions, as I said, we identified and did flag it to Safe Lives, but we did rise to 51%. The changes made by Safe Lives were anticipated to increase, as I've said. Locally, the introduction of the daily MARAC also contributed to that, and I've got some slides to try and explain how that has contributed to it right at the end, if that's okay. We're currently identifying those cases that would have previously not been identified and would have been missed, if I'm going to be honest with you, and I'll explain how they got missed on the later slides. Positive trend, LLR MARAC figures. LLR figures indicate that the most cases come to the MARAC on one occasion. We did some stats early last year and produced them to the MOG that showed that a number of cases come back to the MARAC on 2 or 3 occasions, usually within quick succession, whilst the families are at crisis point. So it's really good how we see that work, because all of a sudden we get this new case referred into us. And now when we're working with it, there'll probably be a couple of incidents at a lower risk level while the agencies are gearing up and getting to work with those families. But at some point they do stop coming back in, which is really good because obviously then everything that we've put in place is working, hopefully. However, after the initial repeat fails and time for the agencies to work for them, repeat rate drops off quite dramatically, was what we see, indicating that partners have identified the causes, the triggers and the safeguarding required, done quite a lot of work over the last couple of years on that and producing them to the MOG and Safe Lives, who are doing a review of us at the moment. A small number of cases are referred back regularly throughout the 12-month period. These are usually the more complex cases. It is important that agencies continue to work with and support these families, as mentioned. What we have done in LLR is we have created what's known as the complex MARAC. We are the only ones that we're aware of. We were certainly the only ones a couple of years ago when we started to put this into place, and that's why Safe Lives are very, very interested with us. They've sat in on a couple of our complex MARACs as well, and we're expecting some feedback in July with those. But they're the cases that would keep coming back in because of obviously all of the complexities around mental health, drug, alcohol, family dynamics, antisocial behaviour, and it was too wide just to deal with in the normal 15 minutes allocated for a case in MARAC. So we take them out and we bring the frontline practitioners in, and we allocate a more appropriate time for those meetings, usually on the last Thursday of the month, and it's usually about an hour to an hour and a half per case. Next slide, please. High percentage of the repeats coming in are usually due to continued offending, reoffending of the perpetrators, and this needs to be considered when looking at the solutions to reduce the repeat cases. Currently, the MARAC has very limited options around perpetrator management. It is recognised that more work is required in this area, and for the MARAC to develop further with better inclusion of partners who are able to work in this field of work. Perpetrator programmes, facilities are extremely limited. We know that perpetrators go on to abuse other partners. A true response when looking to reduce offending needs to include education and working with the perpetrators, reducing their current offending behaviour and working towards avoiding future abusive relationships. The cycle of abuse for victims is well recognised, but to be fully effective, partners need to break the cycle of the offending, which can only be done with a coordinated response to serial domestic abuse offenders. In the last few weeks, we've changed services. I'm sure most of you are aware that the Commission services the 1st of April changed over from UAVA and went to 3 agencies. We've been working with FREVA, WALL, DALS and LWA. And we've linked in a little bit more with the FREVA service and the Jenkins project than we had before. And we have had and we have seen an increased response coming back from probation workers and IOM since the start of April as well. And that's because I've been doing some work trying to engage with probation and IOM to get more information in. So things are looking a little bit better than when we first looked at them. Okay, so I've got some slides here that try to explain how a conventional traditional MARAC would work and why you would miss the repeats and what used to happen in Leicestershire and Rutland. So if you look at this slide to the box to the left, so I've done it here as an instance on the 2nd of February 2022, an assault is recorded on and a dash is taken. That would then be referred into the MARAC, and the 17th of February would have been the cut-off date. So that would have sat in an inbox from the 2nd to the 17th. Nobody would have really particularly done anything with it. It would sit in that inbox. It would then on the 18th be uploaded with up to around 40 cases to be researched, and then it would be sent out. And the MARAC would be held on the 24th. So agencies would get their emails on the 18th/19th, depending on what time of day it was sent out. I'll be honest with you, Sharon used to send them out at the end of the day on the 18th. So they would have been really the 19th. And then agencies really only had a few days to research 40 cases. And then obviously identify the action set. So, and the MARAC would be held in one day. So they would deal with those 40 cases in one day. Now, when I was first involved in the MARACs, 2008-2009, I was Detective Sergeant in the Domestic Abuse Unit at the time. And Pete Williams and I worked quite a lot on the MARACs. And effectively, you know, when it first started, you were talking very, very small numbers. You know, you were talking 14, 15 cases per day, which was quite manageable. But when it got to the 40, and I came back in after the review in 2017, what I found was that towards the end of the day, people were tired. Things were being missed. Agencies were leaving the meeting. On one occasion, I went and there was 4 partners around the table. There was 4 partners and 2 of those were police. So effectively, that was part of my identification around that. And also, I noticed the delays. The monthly delay, the weekly delay there and the monthly delay, some of those cases weren't coming in and being referred until they were about a month and a half, 2 months old. So by the time they got to the MARAC, sometimes they were 3 months, you know, old and being heard very, very late. So the idea to move to a daily MARAC was more based around that early intervention, getting those agencies in at the right time. So what would happen during the 2nd, the 17th, the 18th and the 24th, what you would tend to find sometimes is that there'd be further incidents within those dates. They wouldn't get flagged, they wouldn't get identified, and at most of the meetings, they were missed to be discussed. If we move to the next slide. Okay, that's rather small on there, isn't it? Let's see if I can move to mine so I can read it. don't know whether it can be made bigger, but effectively what I've tried to do there is basically identify the flagging of the MARACs is not entered till the 24th. So that one there just identifies the gap, really. That was the gap that I identified, and really hopefully to try and assure you, if we go to the next map plan, then literally I can try and help here a little bit with explaining why it works better. So on the second, so this is the same scenario on the second. So on the second, the incident, the assault at Dash would be recorded. On the third, the next day, it's case loaded up onto MARAC and MODUS. On the third, we then have a separate time set. There's a whole new plan to that, but effectively each agency has a time limit set as to where they need to look at their case, prepare their case notes, ready to bring it to the meeting. Oh, no, mistake. So basically what would happen is on the third, we would have an initial information sharing meeting where all the agencies have an opportunity to share all of their information. And in that opportunity, we usually find that the gaps that we would have had over the month or the week or the 2 or 3 weeks are actually identified straight away. So basically who is dealing with it, which adult social care workers are working with it, which children's social care workers, everybody knows who's working with that. Actions are then set at that meeting. It is then reviewed 1 week later. So the MARAC actually gets reviewed. So it's not just the one-stop shop, as in the old process of one MARAC actioned out and that was it. On this occasion, it gets reviewed. So what will happen on the 10th is the case gets reviewed. Now, if during the week there's been further incidents, so like on the 5th, the 9th, those cases are flagged to be discussed on the 10th at the review. So not only do we discuss what we shared, the information and the actions that were set during that time, we discuss the new incidents that have come in just to make sure that it's joined up and everybody's aware of what's happening. If further actions are required to be set at that point, we set further actions and they're monitored through MODUS. And then obviously, if any repeats are identified post that MARAC within the 12-month period, then they get identified by whichever agency identifies them and brings them back into the MARAC automatically if they're in criteria. So effectively, in the daily MARAC, we don't miss those repeats. Yes, because we're hearing them daily, they will come back in a little more regularly than what they did in the old process. But that's a more robust process that we've got. We hear those repeats, we share it while it's a crisis point. So if something's escalating in that family and it's escalating in frequency, then all of a sudden we know about it and we can then adjust our responses to it. I think the last slide just really just explains that, and then I've got questions. If hopefully I've managed to settle myself down quickly and get through that, and hopefully that's explained roughly the position we're at with it.
Thanks, Kevin, and well done for getting through that. I know it's difficult when you're not prepared for a meeting. So no, that's really good to hear, and I think that risk and that missing those repeat offenders is key, isn't it, to all the work we do. So you obviously weren't here for the earlier discussions as well, but a lot of that is around the early intervention, domestic abuse and stuff like that. So that's really good to hear that the police from their side are also coming from the same angle as well. So any questions for Kevin before we let him go and get some sleep?
I've got work. I've got the MARAC.
Okay, I hope you recover quickly anyway. So thanks very much for doing that. No more questions for you, but I'm sure the board would welcome some updates in the future when it's a good time to come back and advise of any updates that you want to share with us. So thank you very much for coming.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, item 16 was any other business. I've not got anything to raise from anything else from anybody. Okay, so date of the next meeting is scheduled on the 23rd of September at 10 o'clock, and we're only 2 minutes over, so not bad with a very large agenda. So thank you everyone for all your attention. I think it's been a really good meeting today, and have a good weekend.
Yeah,
See you all
well
soon.
done, Chair.
Bye.
Well done.
Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.